My daughter Jasmine, she was raped at the age of 11, and she was given alcohol by an adult cousin. And when she and I went to the police to file the report, the detective there explained the definition of penetration concerning minors under 13. So he assured us that the perpetrator could get at least 15 years. The range for that crime was 6 to 30. That information was useful because at the sentencing hearing, which came as a surprise, I was informed by the defense attorney that the state offered him a plea deal of 6 years. So having the 15 years in the back of my mind, I said this is unacceptable. Without any knowledge at the time of my rights as a crime victim, I later came to learn, and it's in the end of this folder, we actually have a right to make a statement to the court as a crime victim. I went to the bailiff and asked if I could let the judge know if I could, that I disagree with the minimum. So the bailiff told the judge that I wanted to speak. I didn't know that I could have just had that right, but I kind of had to beg. After the judge heard the legal definition of penetration concerning minors, she threw out the plea deal. And he ended up only getting 7.5 years. But what started to bother me was that in reading the law, seeing how low the sentence is for an adult to rape a child, but they allow aggravating factors such as drugs. If a child's given drugs, then there's more time. But they did not allow that for alcohol. Alcohol has the same effect on children as with drug. It was just a loophole that gave the perpetrator, a child rapist, an advantage. So in 2004, had a bill in the House to amend the Crime Victim Rights Act to make it enforceable, because crime victim rights are unenforceable. It's a constitutional right. It was amended in the Illinois Constitution in 1992. They're great rights, but be lucky if you get them. So the bill failed, and again in 2006 the bill failed again. And then after time I wanted to rename the bill from crime victim rights to survivor rights. I thought maybe we're being railroaded and re-victimized because we're being seen as victims. These people need to know that when we come to the court to prosecute rapists and violent offenders, we're survivors. And we need to be treated with respect. So I was unable to get any support for that, and in 2008 I ran for office, Lake County Board, and after I lost the election, I proposed immediately Jasmine's Law. So Jasmine's Law encompassed the increasing of sentencing for all sex felony crimes and makes an aggravating factor when alcohol is used, and also mandated a sign-off sheet so when victims go through the criminal justice system, they're given that information and they can sign to it so that it doesn't come back as a he said, she said, which happened in my case. Because I did file an ARDC, attorney registration, disciplinary complaint against the prosecutor for not informing me of those rights. So the only thing that ended up passing in Jasmine's Law was the alcohol provision. And I have here a sex chart of all the felony crimes, which the officer I know is aware of. But you'll see the different categories of these felony offenses, and the minimum ranges are from 6 years down to 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, and 1 year. We're talking about a violent crime. Those are way too low. But at least Jasmine's Law, when we had our victory party, I put the description of the law. And it imposes an extended term, which can double the sentencing. So on a Class X, which is the predatory criminal sexual assault, it's the worst. Instead of being 6 to 30, it could be 12 to 60. So when the offender assaults a child while that child is under the influence of alcohol, whether or not the perpetrator provided the alcohol, but the stipulation is that the offender had to know the child was under the influence at the time, and the commission of the offense. So that was a big success in 7.5 years trying to let Springfield know that there's something that needs to be done in order to ensure justice for the victims when we come forward, because the big complaint is that not enough people report. I think the stats are 60% of these crimes go unreported. But there's a lot of re-victimizations in the courts. So I'm trying to do my part as a mother, and this is not a funded effort by the state. This is all out of pocket with volunteers to get this done, to protect our children and let them know about the issues. And in addition to Jasmine's law, and my daughter right now, she's 20, so this law protects children under 18. It in no way benefits her. But it was an effort that, to us, justice meant ensuring what happened to us would not happen to others. That's the only justice that we could get, and we did get that justice. So she's in her 3rd year of college. She got a $200,000 academic scholarship to Washington and Lee. She's a political major. Right now she's in Oxford. She's at a study abroad program in preparation to go to Harvard Law School. And she wants to ultimately become a legislative attorney, and I'd like to see her as a Supreme Court justice. She's phenomenal. And Moms on a Mission, also we have a cable show called Enforced Justice. It's a 1-hour program that airs on Comcast Channel 17 from 6 to 7 every Tuesday, and the program's monthly. This is a little flyer. We're also trying to work to ban the practice of grand juries, because grand juries are ex parte. We want to make sure that people on the opposite position in the criminal justice system, defendants, are also given equal rights and fair due process throughout the criminal justice process to prevent wrongful convictions. Because when the wrong person is convicted, it in no way serves justice for the victim. This is a book that I had written. I use my book as, I give them away and as fundraisers to try to raise money. It's basically, I was the victim of sexual abuse when I was 11. And back then, it was, I guess, not too different than today, but I was blamed. And nothing ever happened, but what ultimately occurred as a result is that I became very suicidal. Suicide is one of the consequences that victims of sexual assault have. Homelessness, substance abuse, there's all kinds of consequences. That's why it's so important that we work to prevent this crime as much as we possibly can, to give children the opportunity to reach their potential, like my daughter Jasmine. Having been the victim and having gone through hell and back because of that situation, I made sure I gave her everything that she needed to be as whole as she is today. And we can do that for all our children. And what I'm working on now, and I mentioned with Mike, is my parents own a 5-bedroom house in Ingleside on Augustana. It's 2-story. There are a lot of unaccompanied youth in our society. These are teenagers who are not wards of the state that sleep on people's couches, they sleep in cars, garages, but they live in very dysfunctional environments, and they just need to get away. Oftentimes, when there is no one that they can turn to, they end up in the wrong situations. So I would like to provide periodic housing and shelter for these children, provide them with washer and dryer to clean their clothes, give them breakfast in the morning, and in the evening they can have dinner so they're not out there on the streets. And this will also help prevent our youth from ending up in the sex trade, because a lot of young girls and even young boys end up in relationships with who becomes then known as a pimp. And then it's very difficult for them to get out of that type of lifestyle. So with that, I'd like to try and encourage our children to stay in school, get their diploma, and to give them guidance and direction, providing tutors, counselors, mentors, all the resources they need to get through those most vulnerable, difficult times and overcome those challenges. And we have what's called recidivism programs, which helps ex-offenders with housing and employment. But I think we need to really do more in preventing violence to help children get a first chance. And we can focus on giving people a second chance after we've met the need to at least give a chance.